Yeah, welcome into the Monday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. I'm back from vacation.
Welcome back.
Well rested, kind of. Feeling good. Good to be here. Football season is here, Joe Rexrode. Training camp this week. How we feeling?
It is. Yeah, I'm ready. It's already going in some places. We're already getting Bears, Caleb Williams stuff and Lions PUP things. And so, yeah, Titans start talking tomorrow, start playing Wednesday. Ready for it.
Getting after it. Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing great. Had a nice weekend of playing hockey and hanging out with the Rexrodes on Friday night.
Wow.
So,
That's right.
Yeah, Mill Creek. Shout out.
At least
That's
free
a nice
ads. There's so many
spot.
free ads this
Hey,
place.
you know what? That was a great beer, great burger. You told me to get the smash burger.
I know. Hey, Robbie's been there.
Yeah,
We've had a draft there.
It's great. Oh,
by the way-
really? That'd be a great idea.
By the way, not that far away from another edition
Very true.
of the Robby and Rexrode Fantasy Football League.
Redemption. Yeah,
That's right.
I would very much so like to win that this year.
You would. And you still owe.
I do. The hot
pizza,
honey
by the way.
pizza. Yeah. That's okay.
Sorry, Chase and Big Joe still owe us a lunch from a year
That's
ago,
true.
which will never get paid.
Probably not.
We need to push it on that. We need to push it on that. And I did not blame Nick for that mute, by the way. That's a Kaharski big thing. Every time
I've noticed that. You know,
Oh, you
Kaharski's-
let me down, Nick.
Kaharski's done radio for over a decade.
Yeah.
All you got to do is hit the button.
Apparently, and
But they have an understanding. of it.
well, apparently at his previous stops, everything was done for him. They'd pour his little water in his mouth for him, like a little baby bird. Do his mute button for
How
him.
dare you make me hit the button?
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah. So
good stuff. We're gonna talk about Kaharski a little later in the show.
yeah, that's right. The argument that we had Friday spilled over into the interwebs, and good for Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry getting after PK a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit later in the program. We got a lot to get into today. It is Titans training camp week. So football season, if you want to count this football season, is right around the corner with training camp beginning this week. We'll take your thoughts all show long on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis from News 2 for his weekly visit at 8 o'clock. So looking forward to all that. Joe, I did catch a little bit of your conversation, I believe on Friday. I don't have my days together. So it was either Thursday or Friday that I caught some of your conversation. I believe it was Kyle who called in and threw out the question of Will Levis, like if he was a top 15 quarterback at the end of the season, would you take that? And I think the answer to that is unequivocally yes.
Yeah,
like to
smash
me,
the yes
if he's a top 15 quarterback, that's a really good development for the Tennessee Titans. I mean, my question is, how realistic do we think that is for him to be a top 15 quarterback this year? Because look, some people have thrown it out there like, does he have to creep into that territory in order for the Titans to make the playoffs? And I think there's probably a path to them making the playoffs where he's not really that. I mean, if the corner group is as good as we think it's going to be, and you know the offensive weapons take as big of a step up as we think they could take, then I don't know that he necessarily has to be a top 15 quarterback for the Titans to be in a playoff race at the end of the year. But certainly, like if you're a Titans fan right now, and we told you that by the end of the season, Will Levis is going to be the 15th best quarterback in the league, I don't know who wouldn't sign up for that right now. So is that realistic? And as you look at Will Levis, the path that's going to be in front of him, and training camp starting this week, I mean, we're getting into the time where everything that he does in practice, everything that he says, everything that we see on the field is going to be dissected and talked about and over-discussed to some degree before the season gets here. Do we think that him leaning into that and getting to a place where he could enter himself into that conversation is a realistic goal for Will Levis this season?
Yeah, once this got brought up, it's a good question. And once this got up, I think it's lofty. This got brought up the other day, and then we started talking a little bit about, and I didn't really have time to get into it, but like, to me, you're getting into the 20s before you start getting into crappy quarterbacks. And really, if you, and actually once you get there, you're starting to get into some of these highly drafted rookies and things, and you just really don't know what it's going to look like this year. Top 15. Let's go for as long as we can go before, like, let's just go through it and see where it's even possible that he could sneak in there. Okay, you got Mahomes.
Yep.
whatever order, but you got Lamar and Burrow and Josh Allen and Herbert and, Rodgers is a really interesting one, but he's somewhere in there, right?
Yep.
I think that Stroud is in there. I think that Hurts is in there.
Yep.
Stafford's in there. Dak, I think, is in there. So now where are we?
We're at 10.
We're at 10. Okay.
Goff.
Okay. So you have Goff. You have your guy,
Love.
who I think is absolutely feeling good about him being in there.
Purdy.
I think you got Purdy. I think you got Trevor Lawrence.
That's
Okay.
14.
There's 14. I'm going Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
Which is pretty freaking good at 15. And then I think,
What about
okay,
Tua?
then you have Tua. And I think certainly right now, I mean, Levis has beat him. Levis
Yes.
did outdo him.
There's
I do
doubt.
think that once you get to that with Tua, and I like Tua. I think Tua is, he's the next guy there. But could he sneak into, so basically, can he sneak into better than Cousins, better than, and the thing is, Cousins, look, he's coming off the Achilles, so there's some unknown with some of these guys.
Yep.
Some of these guys are older. Then after that, you get into, what about Baker Mayfield?
That's exactly
what
I was gonna
about
bring
Derek
up.
Carr?
Yep.
And then get into, younger guys who just like him could be all over the place, like Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
But obviously for this exercise, he's going to be better than him. For this exercise, he's going to be better than the rookies. He's going to be
there's
better.
Deshaun Watson, and we have no idea.
Right.
Who information recently would tell me is not in the top 15 discussion.
But also his whole career information tells you he certainly could be.
Yeah.
So some of Levis being in the top 15, first of all, some of it is out of his hands. But if he plays well enough to where you're talking about him in the top 15 this year, however some of the other stuff works out, some of those guys will be better, some of those guys will be worse. Yes, you're smashing the yes button all day on that. That to me that's an entrenched, reliable, good starting quarterback in the NFL. Quarterback depth in the NFL is bad. You go through the QB2s in the NFL, you'll find 5-6 names you're like, really? That's their quarterback too? And there's a bunch that you just know are not good. But we're into the 20s for sure in terms of quarterbacks who could be really good this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I agree. If Levis creeps into that conversation, then I think the primary goal for the Titans this year, as far as I'm concerned, is him. And I don't know that you're totally there if he gets to being where you discuss him as a top 15 quarterback in terms of fully selling off that he's your guy moving forward. But you got a pretty good jump towards that direction. Like, part of playing quarterback in the NFL, and this is why I'm hesitant to just totally crown CJ Stroud yet. And look, I'll be honest with you. Like, I feel really good about Jordan Love. I need to see him do it for a little bit longer as well, because part of playing quarterback at a high level and being one of those top 10, top 15 guys is being able to do it every year. How many guys have we seen that come in, look really good early on, and then either the league catches up with them, or in some cases it's been injury, some cases a combination of the two, and they're just never quite the same after that. We've talked about RG3, we've talked about Vince Young here in our own backyard. It's different circumstances for most of these guys when those conversations come in. But part of playing quarterback at a high level and being one of these guys that's top 15, top 20 is being able to do it for a consistent period of time. So if Levis does that this year and he's a top 15 guy, I feel great about it. I'm not totally convinced probably at the end of it that he's the quarterback of the future. Absolutely. But that to me it's about as good of a year from him as you could ask for. If he got into being a top 15 quarterback, I think you would be ecstatic about the direction of that if you're the Titans.
Yeah. And I think actually the problem is we're saying top 15, but what is it? Maybe it's a down year for offenses in the league or something, right? But
sure.
It could look different ways being top 15. For the most part, though, I'd say if he is, then there's going to be a lot of momentum toward, he's getting the deal,
Yeah.
Like TD said last week, he's basically he is embarking on a year of like he's flirting with 250 million. Like, can you go get that 250 million, Will Levis?
Yeah.
I mean, and I doubt he's framing it that way. That would probably be, first of all, not productive to look at it that way, but that's the reality of the situation. When you have that job, try to do that job in this country, very, very few people can do it. And if you can do it, man, you're going to get rewarded.
No doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We are off and running today on Robby and Rexrode. Do we think that Will Levis getting into the top 15 at the QB position this year is realistic? Do you think that? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Titans training camp beginning this week. We'll take your thoughts on all that as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. Our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Throwing the question out there, is a path to being a top 15 quarterback this year realistic for Will Levis? When you factor in the level of quarterback play around the league, him being in year 2, his first year in a new offense, we'll take your thoughts on all of that. And Joe, one of the interesting parts of that discussion to me is how quickly out of the gate are the Titans going to be able to really be efficient, move the ball on offense. We see this from time to time in the NFL, right? And you've brought this example up before, and I think it's a good example, and there's a lot that went into it. But think about Arthur Smith, his first year as offensive coordinator with the Titans. There was a lot going on. You still had Marcus Mariota as the starting quarterback to begin all that. Taylor Lewan got suspended, so he came back, and it took really a few games for that offensive line after he came back to really gel. I remember they signed, was that the same offseason they signed Roger Saffold?
Yes.
And he looked terrible.
It was bad early.
The first 4 or 5 games. They came back, or Lewan came back. Eventually the line started to gel. Obviously they made a quarterback switch with Tannehill coming in, and the offense from where it began the season to where it ended the season, maybe the most dramatic turnaround I think I've ever seen on the offensive side of the football. I mean, it is pretty stark, the difference between the beginning and the end of that year. So I say that to say there were some mitigating circumstances involved there, but it was pretty stark. It took a while for the Titans offense to get going. You do have a first-time head coach, a first-time play caller, a second-year quarterback who's played a grand total of 9 games in the NFL. And now, added to all that, a couple new receivers, a very different offensive line. There's a lot that's new on this Titans offense this year. So how quickly are they going to be able to kind of gather all of this information, find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them? How quick can that process take place to where they're firing on quote unquote all cylinders by the time the season comes around? Maybe it's week 1. That's what you hope. Maybe it's week 9. Like it's sometimes it takes a while with these new ingredients.
Yeah. That's a great example. That's the ultimate example of a team transforming during a season. That was the worst offense in the NFL after 6 games, the worst. And it was, I don't know, by the time they go to Kansas City, and they go into Kansas City in the AFC title game, their first 3 drives, they go it's like touchdown, field goal, touchdown. It's like, I mean, were they a top 3 offense or something? Something like, I mean, top 5 probably, right? In the NFL.
To Dennis Kelly.
Yeah, exactly. So the worst offense in the NFL. No points at Denver. Can't complete a pass. Arthur Smith's an idiot. The offensive line's trash. Mariota's done, et cetera, you know. And then they are, you know, they're a couple plays, honestly, from like being in the Super Bowl. So there you go. So it's a tough question with this one. It's like, first of all, well, right tackle. Yep. Like, is Nicholas Petit-Frere gonna be out there this week, and then or whatever, whoever's going to take that job, are they going to solidify that? Is J.C. Latham as a rookie just ready to go? He's going to Chicago, and here you go. He's brick wall on the on Levis's blind side, or you know, there's going to be probably some bumps for the rookie, right? You'd expect that. I think some of the pieces in place are good, but also we don't know about the new OC, the new play calling head coach. So could be right away, could be later, could be never.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I say, how long is it going to take? It may take the whole year. Like, you know, they may not figure it out. That's part of what makes this year so intriguing, is there's just so much unknown, especially on that side of the ball, in terms of exactly what they're going to be. Like, you feel really good about a lot of the additions that they've made on paper, but you know, sometimes what you see on paper and what you see on the field takes a while to really mesh together and to fire on all cylinders that way. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in, Scott in Goodlettsville. Scott, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, fellas. Let me first say that I really appreciate you all keeping it in sports, man. Other stations don't do that, so kudos to you all. I enjoy listening to you every morning.
Thank you.
So my thing is, just want to throw this out there. I know we've top 15. That's a lofty goal, and as you guys mentioned, the quarterback. But I think the first thing is for us to see if he can be in the top 2 in his division. I mean, it's a division. The quarterbacks are young, all 4 of them, and so I think that's the key right there to get that top 15. If he can be in the top 2, if he can be right below Trevor Lawrence and right above Stroud, if hopefully he takes a step back. But then Anthony Richardson, he's a wild card because he didn't play that much last year. So being in the top 2 in the division is going to be key, because we got to play those guys, 6 times. So beating them out head to head and getting a great division record will be key for me. I'll hang up and listen to you guys' thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that. And it's unlikely it works out this way over the long term. But there is there's a chance that all 4 teams in this division have found their quote-unquote quarterback of the future for the next 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
There's a chance. Now, is it likely going to play out that way? Probably not. Somebody, I mean, it's not going to be Trevor Lawrence. He just got to pay a ton of money.
Yeah.
Somebody
he's in.
is probably not going to make it. Maybe it's Levis. Maybe it's Richardson. I guess maybe it's Stroud, although he's off to a pretty darn good start.
Most people would say it's either Levis or Richardson if it's going to happen. If it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Right?
But, there's a chance that all four of them are good.
Yeah.
So, that's exciting. That would be fun to think about. But that also means that you could have a pretty good quarterback. And if you're still the third or fourth best quarterback in your division, what does that mean? Now, again, there's more to it than just having the best quarterback. Like, you've got to have a team around him, and we know that. But to Scott's point, like, that's what makes this division so intriguing, is because all the quarterbacks are really young. Even Trevor Lawrence, it feels like he's been around a while at this point, and he's younger than Will Levis. So that's the wild part of this to really think about, in terms of all four of these teams may have found their quarterback of the future. And then how do you stack up if you're Levis against those other three guys, if that's the case moving forward here?
I don't know why this just came to mind, but the NFC East in 1991, I believe it would be it'd be Aikman, it'd be Randall Cunningham, and Phil Simms. And probably the fourth best quarterback was Mark Rippon that year. And that team, that Washington destroyed everybody. He was great that year. I'm just saying, yes, there is a lot more to it than that. I just looked at PFF's rankings, by the way, which are always, as you know, I value those very highly.
Yes.
But just we haven't done our guy Sandow at The Athletic hasn't done the tiers yet. That's always a big day when the quarterback tiers come out. These guys do tiers. They have a 6th tier, which is the next generation, and they have Richardson 24th, leading that tier, and they have Levis the lowest in that tier at 28th overall. Then they get into, like, they at least have him over like Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold and some of these guys.
That's good.
Yeah. But then, they've got, let's see, just may as well go through the whole division. They got Lawrence 12th, and they've got Stroud. Where do they have Stroud? And there's going to be some crazy rankings of Stroud. These guys don't get into that, so I guess I give them credit. They have him 10th. They have Stroud 10th, though, ahead of Trevor Lawrence. But that's about how most people would look at it. Those two probably in the top 15. It's hard to keep Lawrence out of the top 15. I know last year was disappointing, but he's still there. And then, just about unanimously across the league, I would bet Anthony Richardson will be ranked ahead of Levis, even though to me Levis showed more last year than Richardson did.
It has to. That goes purely back to, like, combine, right? Like, it has to.
Well,
and draft position.
Yeah, he had a couple. He had the one crazy comeback. Who were they playing? Where he went nuts and he took over the game, and it was like, oh boy, okay, now I see it. I think it was it the week before he got hurt against the Titans, or maybe 2 weeks before?
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot for sure to go on. Some of it is just obviously the incredible talent, which, hey, that matters.
Sure.
And it's not like Levis was consistently good last year, but he had a little bit more opportunity. And I thought he probably had a little bit, you would say, a little bit better year, than Richardson had. But people are going to rank Richardson higher. That's why he went where he went in the draft, and Levis went where he went. Yeah. So what did he end up with? He ended up with
Richardson had 4 games, 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 59.5% completion percentage. He barely played.
Right. Yeah, he had like the one game where in the second half, they just all of a sudden he put the team on his back, and it was like, oh, there you go. And you know what? Hey, maybe that'll come to fruition this year, and there'll be no doubt about it. Again, like you said, the Titans are fascinating because of the unknown, but also I think those two teams, and as part of the division of this, the potential division of 4 long-term quarterbacks, those two teams in particular are fascinating.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Kyle. Kyle, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Good, man.
Good.
Good talk to you. Well, that last caller got me really hyped up, man. I'm really excited for this season. Last 2 years been, a little rough. This year just feels like it's going to be a lot of fun, man. We got Will. I think he's going to be a star. And like y'all are saying, this new division, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just going to be a complete refresher. New coach, new everything, new schemes. And I'm just so ready for it. I took a second job just to help the time pass until the football season gets here. As soon as preseason starts, see ya. I'm going back to my other job.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Did he just put his 2 weeks in on the
It's
air?
like, by the way, I'm out of here.
I mean, you should keep going through the preseason games, though, man. I mean, I know they're
just
going
get to the end of the preseason.
I know they're going to play starters a little bit more, but yeah, that's the problem this week is everybody gets all excited, and then you're like, well, settle in, folks.
We got a long month and a half left until this stuff really gets started. At that point.
And there's going to be a lot of stuff we talk about that ends up being laughed at in about 2 months.
Yeah, there is going to be that. It's an annual tradition at this point. 615-737-1025. We'll take more of your phone calls, more of your text on Will Levis and the Titans. Do you believe a path to him being a top 15 quarterback this year is attainable? More on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. Is there a path for Will Levis being a top 15 quarterback this year? Your thoughts on that all show long. You know, I'm really interested to see as this goes along here, and I think part of what the answer to this question is going to be is how, number one, how healthy can the wide receiver core stay? Because I feel like if Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd in particular can stay healthy, then that's the makings of a pretty good core right there. What version of Ridley are you going to get? Like, is Ridley going to be a guy that is a bona fide number one wide receiver in the NFL? Is Hopkins going to give you what he gave you a year ago? Because if you get those two things, then Will Levis's job becomes a lot easier at that point. Like, if Calvin Ridley is what you've paid him to be, and Hopkins is what he brought to the table last year, which is consistent availability, you can throw him the ball pretty much anywhere in his catch radius. He's going to find a way to come down with it more times than not. You know, he's also, added to that, like if Ridley is what you paid him to be, and you can't just pay all of your attention to Hopkins if you're a defense, what does that do for Hopkins on the other side of the field as well? Like, if you get the best version of those two, and I realize that's a big if in the NFL, there's a lot that has to go into that. But if you get the best version of those two, Will Levis's job should be a lot easier. Now, I do think, and you brought up an important point earlier, I think there are a lot of people, after what they saw from him in college, the fact that Bill Callahan is now here, and the track record that he brings with him, and how impressive he was by all accounts at the mini camp and the rookie camp. I think there's a lot of people just penciling in that Latham on the left side is going to be really good, and hopefully he will be. Like, and I'm not saying that he won't be, but to your point, he is a rookie. And how often do you see rookies come into the league and it's just smooth sailing from day one? Doesn't happen very often. So maybe it will for him, and maybe it doesn't take him very long, even if there is some bumps, to really settle in and be a good player for them over on the left side. But you are talking about a rookie playing a different position than he played in college and doing it at the NFL level against some of the best athletes in the world. I would say there's probably going to be at least some growing pains once the games come around at that point.
Yeah. Well, you brought up Roger Saffold, who was a veteran, who was really good with the Rams, obviously, had gotten to the Super Bowl and all that stuff, and it was ugly early. He didn't have Taylor Lewan next to him, but still, yeah, it's a good reminder, because there's going to be some. I mean, he's going to get schooled sometimes. Of course, he will be. He's a rookie left tackle, and this league is loaded with good pass rushers. I mean, it's loaded with really difficult guys to block on the edge. And that's what, like the Titans this year, will they be in a position where they only have to help one side? That's been their problem. It's not just that, obviously they've been really bad at left tackle, but they've had to worry about both sides. They haven't been solid really either side, it's not just left tackle. So what you're hoping is, I think that at some point, and obviously the sooner the better, Latham becomes that guy where he's solid. And I do think that side with Latham and Skoronski, go into Cushenberry could be really good, but I'm sure there will be some tough moments.
I'm sure there will. And then, like you said, the right side, we still got to see. We still got to see who ends up taking that job. If it is Petit Frere, how good can he be? Can he stay healthy? Can he be a reliable option for them over on the right side? And your right guard, who's going to be the starter there? Can you have a reliable right side of the offensive line? That's probably, I think, best case scenario for those guys is probably not elite, probably not upper tier in the National Football League, but can they be solid enough where you're just not constantly worried about them putting them out there? Like you said, they've spent so much time the last 2 years having to leave tight ends in to protect and to help out. And you're going to have to do that some this year, would be my guess. But can you find a way to do that way less, where you feel really good about Latham on the left and Petit Frere potentially on the right, where you can leave those guys on an island more often and have more options in the passing game. And look, the passing game is going to be different this year anyway. There's going to be just different formations than we're used to seeing from the Titans the last couple of years, and they're going to go 3 wide a lot more than they have. And I think everybody's looking forward to that. But this still, we're talking about the quarterback and the excitement in the offense, and it's still a lot of it's going to come down to, can you block? I mean, that's been the question we've been talking about with this team for 2 years. Can you block?
Right. And we talk about this team's pass rush and the possibility that, T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons could be this dynamic interior duo. Well, that's also where the Titans had problems too. I mean, that's the biggest, I think, issue with Aaron Brewer would be at times just getting overwhelmed by bigger guys in there. And, Skoronski had some real rough pass pro stuff last year at different times. So how much better are they there? We don't know who the right guard will be. I think at least there are options. And I know TD last week said he thinks Sadiq Charles is going to be the starter there. They do have Brunskill and they have Radin. So I mean, at least there's some functional depth there. But whoever it is, are they going to be better? Is Cushenberry, just his size, is that going to make things a lot more sound in different matchups for the Titans? I mean, that's hugely important too.
No doubt about it. And then on the Levis front, can he take some strides in those areas that we've talked about with him? If the protection is better and the weapons, I think, clearly are better than they were a year ago, what does that mean for him? I mean, everybody views, and we've talked about this, I don't know how many people actually who are talking about Levis and are talking about the quarterback position from a national perspective. I don't know how much time they sat down and watched Will Levis play last year. Like you would think the Miami comeback would be top of mind for some of these people when you start talking about Levis. But I think if you really dig down into it, it doesn't take you long to realize the conditions were bad. I mean, the conditions were bad from a line standpoint, a receiving standpoint. It was just bad for them last year. So if that is significantly better, well, then some of the excuses start to go out the door for him. It's, you're still going to have a first time head coach, but if the conditions are better, what does that translate into for him? You would have to think it would help. How much does it help? Does it help to the point where his natural ability and his full potential starts to become pretty evident? Like, can you get to a point pretty quickly in the season where you're like, okay, well, we're blocking for him. Guys are getting open. It's not, they're not draped in coverage like they were last year outside of DeAndre Hopkins. Guys are getting open. We feel good about the play calling, the offensive system. And, man, he is playing really well. He's making quick decisions with the ball. He's making good decisions with the football. And we feel really good about where he is. Like, that's to me why I think it was so important and why some of the conversation around the Titans, like, why are they spending money? Like, what are they doing? Was so mystifying to me, because this is why you do it. You figure out what you have at quarterback when you surround him with better weapons.
Yeah, I mean, again, the whole thing in the NFL, it's a long rebuilding process. You should stink for a while. It doesn't really work out that way. Every year in the NFL, you should be able to look at your team and say, okay, how can this team get in the playoffs? Like, there's no reason not to do that, right? Like, it's just so different from, well, it's certainly hockey. Like, hockey is such a contrast in hockey in terms of team building. So, yeah, absolutely. I like what they did. And you're right. A lot of those, if it gets down to where he has good conditions and the ball is just not out on time or he's throwing bad picks or whatever, I mean, it'll be easy to see. Because I think that the problem with some of the people evaluating him from afar last year and based on EPA and all these things is like, okay, go back and watch it. And there are certainly some reps out there where he was late with the ball or he missed a pass you have to make or he made a bad decision. But the eyeball test of watching him, that's where I think there's such a disconnect between local and national, in which local is right, which is just that it was encouraging. It was an overall encouraging, not great, but it was encouraging. There was a lot to build on, you could see. And if you're just going to box score scout him, then you're not taking into account just how bad it was. It was pretty freaking bad.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, a legendary Tennessee Titan called out a friend of the program on Friday, and it was beautiful to see. I'm really excited to get Joe's reaction to this coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
I didn't see a lot of people that were like, I got to see Derrick Henry's last 8 games with the Titans. I can't miss these because they didn't trade him for a potential 3rd-round pick.
So because
that might be a huge thing for next
because
year.
some people didn't show up, that dismisses the people who did?
I'm just saying.
What about the people who were there, Paul?
I
You don't care about them?
It's fine. Worship your hero. That's not the way I look at a team.
That was Paul Kuharski on Friday alongside Joe Rexrode. I heard you guys got in a heated discussion about rooting for players, rooting for teams.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
No, yeah. And it was at the very end of Friday, and it was like, God, I wish we did this earlier. This was good because, there was a lot of reaction. A lot of people were getting into it. Probably more people than not actually backed him on the text line. There were a little bit more for him than against. And again, I'm not saying you should be rooting for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, that's not the point. But rooting for Derrick Henry, sure. I don't think you have to turn in your Titans fan card if you're rooting for Derrick Henry to do well this year. And if that happens to result in some wins for the Ravens, well, I got news for you. They're going to win some games anyway. Okay.
Well, I mean, Kuharski maybe thinks that they're not going to win a whole lot of games. He had them. He's not as high on the Ravens as some other people are.
Yeah. But I don't think he thinks they're going to be trash. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, Kuharski took that conversation to Twitter on Friday.
Of course he did.
And said, quote, if you root for Derrick Henry to the extent that you want the Ravens to win so much as a game, you are not the Titans fan you think you are. Period. Not up for debate. If they are on the goal line at the end of a game, they're trailing by 4, and you want him to score, you are not the Tennessee fan that you think you are. This is from Paul Kuharski on Friday.
That's just stupid.
Well, Derrick Henry thought so too, because Derrick Henry quote tweeted Kuharski and said, quote, Paul, go find something to do, end quote. This was the tweet from Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry still keeping tabs on Paul Kuharski, which is good to see. But
fantastic.
What did you make of PK's tweet and Derrick Henry's response to that tweet?
It was fantastic. I quote tweeted it and just said gold jacket. Like that's a Hall of Fame tweet for a future Hall of Famer. Did Paul ever respond?
I don't think so. I need to go double check.
Crawled into his little hole. Didn't want to mess with Derrick. I get it. Yeah, that was fantastic response by Derrick. And again, like if the situation hurts your team, then fine, right? Like if the Titans find themselves, maybe the Ravens are a little bit disappointed this year, and the Bengals are amazing with Burrow, and so you're in the mix with a bunch of other teams along with the Ravens for a wild card. Then of course not. You wouldn't want Derrick Henry to score on that play to give them a win. But if it doesn't hurt your team, who cares? He's yeah.
Well, I would love to know.
Overboard on that.
I mean, luckily we have a lot of history to look back on between the Titans and former players going to the Ravens. I mean,
that is true. Steve
McNair was the quarterback for the Ravens at one point, as we know. D. Mace, very good wide receiver for the Ravens. Samari Roll was there. I mean, this has been a long-standing tradition at this point of Titans really good players going to Baltimore. So I would love to know, like, if you've been a Titans fan for a long time, when McNair was the quarterback of the Ravens, did you want him to do well? Like, did you? And now it's also a little bit different because, number one, they used to be in the same division, AFC Central back in the day. You had the rivalry of the 2000 team that looked like they were about to go back into the Super Bowl. Ray Lewis and company coming here, and it was really painful. You had 2003 when they met in the playoffs. The Titans beat them on the road up there. So there was some pretty recent nastiness related to that rivalry.
Yep.
And just some different personalities. Like I know the Titans have met the Ravens in the playoffs twice somewhat recently as well. Like it wasn't quite the same as that back in the day. It's just a different type of rivalry. So, it's quarterback. It's different between, those two positions, obviously, but you did have Steve McNair playing for them one time. I would love to know, like, did you root for McNair to do well when he was the quarterback of the Ravens?
Good question. Yeah. I guess one thing about that is it's a little bit more directly affecting team success, when it comes to a quarterback. I mean, D-Mace was really good there.
He was.
For a few years, so that's also different too. the thing about this is, Derrick Henry, that was seen as like the big payback. Like you said, you don't want to forget that game in 2003 before they lost to the Raiders in the title game. But the playoff win in Baltimore was Derrick Henry completely dominating that game after they talked all this trash.
Yep.
And so now he goes there. So there is still like the history piece, with these players. But I think he's a different deal too. I mean, I think Derrick Henry has a case. I think he certainly has a case as the most popular Titan of all time. I wasn't here for McNair, but my understanding is it wasn't like it was all like, "Yo, you're the greatest of all time." His
Certainly not at the
tenure.
beginning. No.
Yeah. So I mean, Derrick Henry, I think, has a case as the most beloved and just universally, and how, as he should be right in there for performance, personality, just all of it, professionalism. So yeah, look, I don't think there's anything at all wrong with rooting for him, even if that does lead to, if he has a great year, that probably means good things for them.
Yeah, like I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I also don't blame if you're a Titans fan and you don't root for him to do well. Like I don't hold that against you either. Like, look, I'm obviously a big Packers fan. I do not want to see Aaron Rodgers do well with the New York Jets. Right. I do not.
But he's also very unlikable.
He is. But like,
you had issues with him when he was there. He annoyed the hell out of you.
He did.
Derrick Henry not annoy the hell out of any Titans
That
fans.
is true. But like, look, Devontae Adams, loved me Devontae Adams. Did not want to see him do well in the Raiders. Like it just, when you make, and now I realize this is a different situation than that. Like Devontae Adams leaving the Packers was different than Derrick Henry leaving the Titans. It's just a completely different situation. But I'm just saying, like if you're a Titans fan out there that doesn't want to see him do well in Baltimore, like I don't really hold that against you. Like I think the team part of this too is a pretty important factor. So I don't really have a problem either way. Like I don't think you need to turn in your Titans fan card if you're like, well, Derrick Henry ran for 150 yards today. Really enjoyed seeing that. And then I guess you hope the Ravens lose 35-32 at the end of the day or something like that. But I don't have a huge issue with Titans fans wanting Derrick Henry to do well in a different spot. Like, because I think part of this too is you say future Hall of Famer, and I agree. But I do think like there's still more for him to do out there, right? Like to really, really, we've talked about this with him, solidify. There are some people that think he's a lock. There are some people that think there's still more left to accomplish for him to get in the Hall of Fame. So if you're somebody that really wants to see him in the Hall of Fame at the end of the day, then you would probably want him to do well.
Absolutely. Yeah, because he might get in right now if he retired, but I don't know.
I mean, I would put him in right now, but that doesn't mean that he will.
Yeah. I think it's definitely trending toward he's going to get in, but absolutely. If he stacks a couple more 1,000-yard seasons in Baltimore on top of everything, then that strengthens his case to the point where it's hard to imagine him not getting in. So there's another reason. Good job. Another reason to root for him. There you go. Yeah, I don't think it's controversial. I know it'd be easier if he was like with the Cowboys or something, although I guess you could, an NFC team, let's say. I mean, some people really hate them too.
There's that.
There's nothing wrong with rooting for players after they leave there's nothing wrong with rooting for players. I mean, obviously, like LeBron, some people are just LeBron fans. I know that's different, but still.
Why couldn't he have gone to the Cardinals? Nobody has anything against the Cardinals. Derek, you run for as many yards as you want to run down there in Arizona.
You used to be able to say the Lions.
That's true.
Yeah. Now they're supposedly good.
NFL's darling team now.
Yeah. Just wait. Reality coming.
So you don't think that this means that Titans fans are going to be flying around with Baltimore Ravens flags hanging out of their car or anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just Karski just has to take it overboard. Again, I think some people are trying to read into like we're talking about now you're a Ravens fan. No, that's not at all the point. And I gave the example for me of Kirk Gibson leaving the Tigers for the Dodgers to date myself in the 80s. But at first I was mad. I was upset. It was awful. And then he had an MVP season with the Dodgers by the postseason. I was just like totally rooting for him and them, But that was just me. I think that happens to people sometimes. Like if the Titans are like 7-10 this year, they don't make the playoffs, which would be, it's right around the range of what they'll probably be, 7-8 wins.
Yeah.
And the Ravens are, 13-4 and they're a contender, you're not going to root for Derrick Henry to go get a ring at that point. I mean, at that point, your team's out of it. I understand the hatred and the history with the Ravens, but Ray Lewis isn't on that field, right?
Yeah, but I think it's still the team, though.
Yeah, still the franchise. The thing about that is it's such a good and respectable franchise. Like, you actually have to really respect the franchise,
You do.
right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. So let's say that's the scenario, and they're in the postseason, and it's it's Ravens Chiefs again. You're not rooting for Derrick Henry to go for $150, 2 touchdowns, and get to the Super Bowl and have his chance. I know it would hurt to see your great player like with A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
But there's such a difference. A.J. Brown shouldn't have been traded. There wasn't the emotional connection to him with fans that there is with Derrick Henry.
In that scenario, too, I think we're getting real heavy into the Chiefs fatigue that I think is about to sweep the nation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
it's already there.
Yeah. I mean, they've been doing a whole lot of winning. But, I mean, I'm thinking back as we're having this conversation on my sports fandom. I'm pretty spiteful. Didn't want Rodgers to do well. Didn't want Adams to do well. LeBron James, still one of my greatest things about him is he's won more championships with the Heat than he has anywhere else. So I've always rooted for him to not win more with the Cavs or the Lakers than he did with the Heat. I'm very spiteful.
Okay. That's fair. I'm trying to think if there's an example like that for me. I'm sure there is. For me, like Dennis Rodman was tough. But I still kind of liked him. But also I was just like,
the
with your
Bulls.
stupid purple hair and Jordan and Pippen. So that would be one. I certainly did not want him to do well or them to do well. So there's one. But that's a direct rival too, and more than the Ravens. The Ravens have the history, but they're not a division rival.
We'll take your thoughts on this. 615-737-1025. Our phone number 615-737-1025. More on this conversation. We'll get back into some quarterback conversation as well. Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts. 615-737-1025. We need the YouTube chat back. Text line down for the moment.
Text line down. Text line down.
We need the YouTube chat. Come on back. Which, by the way, Jacob in the YouTube chat says, quote, I really like Henry and would have cheered hard for him had he went to almost any other team, but not the Ravens. Never the Ravens.
Okay.
That's from Jacob on YouTube.
Yeah, look, if that's how you feel, I'm fine with that. I'm just arguing for the people who don't feel like that. I think the people who don't feel like that should not be shamed, but I respect it. Hey, if you hate an opposing helmet or jersey that much, and I mean the real one, not the stupid, marketing gimmick ones, I get it. I do. I mean, still he's blowing me up here. McNair, he says,
welcome back from vacation. Sir.
Yeah, welcome back. McNair was more loved. He won the MVP. Fans tend to like those players. I mean, and your response to that is?
Right. I don't know that. I mean, it would depend on which year we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously they were together for a long time. I don't know in the totality of it that Steve McNair was the most popular player on his own team. Eddie George is pretty popular. So, I mean, it's close.
All I hear from people is how, in some of his time at least, like his teammates were often really mad at fans for the booing.
Yes.
And
especially early. Like
the
there
displeasure.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's all close. Like we've talked about this before with those three specifically, with Henry, McNair, and Eddie George. Like it's close. And yes, McNair won an MVP, and he was a quarterback, so it's different that way. But I think you can make the argument about Derrick Henry being the most popular Titan of all time. I think the argument is there.
Still, he says, compare the exits. Eddie George and Henry were understandable for fans. Fans went bleeping crazy over McNair. That's also, well, first of all, there are a lot of Titans fans very sad, at least. But yeah, the time was certainly up for Eddie George, right? I mean, it was. I mean, McNair was still a more viable QB than Eddie George was a viable running back.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
So there's also that. Stilly.
McNair also kind of got like locked out of the building. If memory
right.
serves me
All this stuff
correctly.
happened
Like
with Floyd. Yeah. Right.
It
ended. Yeah. Kind of a rough ending.
Yeah. A little bit different. But again, I think it's close. Yes, McNair won an MVP, and McNair was and McNair, I think by the time the Super Bowl season came around, and certainly after that, like part of his the love that Titans fans have for him, yes, he was a great player, but he was also like he was superhuman, like he could play through some of that stuff, and that he really endeared himself to the fan base that way.
Yeah.
Look what this dude is playing through, and look at what he's doing out there. Yeah.
Sure. Of course.
So it's just different.
They're kind of pretty tough too. Guy he played a whole half of football on a broken bone. Dan Pompei story. Did you read?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, kind of revisiting that. Good stuff on the YouTube chat real quick from Timothy Ferristad. He says, watching McNair play for the Ravens while Scary Carey was a Titans QB was a dark time in my life that I'd rather forget. Thank you very much.
Hey, Carey can sling that thing, man.
Yeah, he can. I look at Henry kind of like Ekholm. I was cheering for the Oilers once the Preds were out just so Ekholm could win the Cup. If the Titans are out, I'm hoping Henry wins it all, but I hope Suter never wins. I think that's a great thing, right? Like there's some people that of course. Now, I mean, as far as I know, Ryan Suter just walking down Broadway in like 2047 with his grandkids, he'll get booed. Okay. So there's that too, but I think that's a great comparison. And I think that's true. I mean, the Oilers are in the, like 95% Preds fans rooting for the Oilers to win it all, right?
I do think like the Ravens part of it is a complicating factor. Like if he had gone to, even if it was an AFC team, but it was like, the Broncos or something, like it's okay, whatever. Like who cares if the Broncos are good? Like if you're the Titans, you don't have a big problem with the Broncos. But I like the Ravens, I think adds, I mean, we heard it from some people, and now this is a very small minority. And I thought it was stupid. I think most people think it's stupid at the time, but it was like, Derrick Henry, how could you be a Titans legend and then just actively choose to go to the Ravens?
Yeah,
Does
insane.
he not understand the history between the Titans and the Ravens?
That's utterly insane.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick Henry has to worry about Derrick Henry at that point and going to win and the contract and all that stuff. So all that stuff's done. But I do think like if you're I have no doubt that when week 1 rolls around and you finally see him out there in a real live game setting playing for the Baltimore Ravens, that will probably be a not fun sight for a lot of Titans fans. Like I totally understand that.
Yeah, it'd be conflicting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. The helmet is just it's poison, but you love the guy. So it's good. It's a very interesting conflict.
It is a very interesting conflict. And I mean, added to the intrigue of it all is I'm really interested to see how that works with him and Lamar and that offense and how good they're going to be. And what does he have left in the tank? Like I'm really interested to see.
I'm
He's on
guessing
the other side of 30 now. So
Yep. I think he's probably in pretty decent shape. So
probably so.
no, I think it's one of the most interesting.
How are they going to use it?
Even if apart from Nashville, just in general the NFL, like one of the most interesting individual storylines of the year is how he works in that offense and how much he has left.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a quarterback that's won 2 MVPs. So are they gonna turn around and hand the rock to Derrick Henry 20, 25 times a game? I have my doubts that that's going to happen.
No, I don't think it'll be that much. I just think he'll be that. I think that what it should be is that those two put defense. Speaking of conflict, put defenses in conflict a lot.
Yeah,
and maybe you can take a little bit off Lamar's plate as a runner in this way too. So
he's lost some weight.
I saw that.
He'll be fast as lightning out there.
Yeah, but also the whole point of
killed.
gaining the weight was to not, was to be able to take the hit. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there.
Lamar, watch out. Make sure you don't take a big hit.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's resolved to not take those hits, and Derrick Henry should help with that. He'll take hits.
He will. David on YouTube says, I have Derrick Henry in my keeper league, so it'll make it a little easier to cheer for him, but it's painful to see the Raven on him. Maybe that's what you do if you're conflicted. You just take him in your fantasy football league. It's like, well, now I have to root for him.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I've got Mark Tilden, 900 yards, 20 touchdowns. The Ravens lose every game. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it would be he could have if he has that kind of year,
They're probably
and, and they lost every game. Man, I need to see how that works out.
John Harbaugh might get fired.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how bad did their defense just completely fall off the map? But last year, going into the season, I didn't think their defense was going to be that good, and they were great. So, yeah, I think they're going to be good. So that's something you just have to be able to come to terms with.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll get back into the quarterback conversation. Who are the most overrated quarterbacks in the league heading into this season? Who are the most underrated? And where does Will Levis kind of fall into all that discussion? We'll get into all that. Take your thoughts as well on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Our YouTube chat is flowing as well in the 7 o'clock hour. More on that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Game Summer Ticket Tour presented by Green River Whiskey is back. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ Sports Bar and Grill at 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro this Thursday from 4 to 6. He gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and a whole lot more. Also get signed up for the grand prize tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts on our YouTube chat and on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Text line back under repair.
That darn text line, I tell you what. Speaking of, words, let me see if I can find a word. Speaking of technical difficulties, our parking spots here are all locked up. So we got
Woody and Jim
right
in.
here,
Yeah.
looking in, taunting, banging on the window and stuff like that. This
Taking
is
your
gonna
parking
be life now, huh?
Taking your parking spot.
Yeah, taking my parking spot. What? Putting his tongue on the window. What do you do? What do you do over here?
Like blowing you kisses through the window. You didn't see it.
It's going to be just another
chaos in
difficulty.
here.
It is. It's like an obstacle in the job, but it's cool. Cool to have those guys in the building.
It is very cool.
Congrats to them. Don't take my parking spot.
Yeah, watch where you park, man. Watch where you park. The most overrated quarterbacks heading into this year. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go with this, but as you look around the league, who are if you had to name a couple quarterbacks that you think maybe getting a little bit too much love heading into this year, who would those quarterbacks be? Who are some of the names that come to mind when you think about most overrated quarterbacks heading into this season?
Well, this isn't the definitive list, but earlier when we were going through Will Levis possibly being top 15, I did do PFF. I think maybe this is me extending the olive branch of PFF. PFF, I love you guys now. But I will go with theirs. I think their rankings are generally about the same as most people. I mean, they base it on their goofy little stats, but big time throw rate, things like that. But, it's like they're basically the same ratings a lot of people. And the obvious names that come to mind would be Dak Prescott. I think Justin Herbert I would not put him there, okay? But I think that he's going to be a popular pick in this category because of the lack of success. I don't think he deserves to be in there, but Aaron Rodgers, they have him number 8. Is that overrated? I would argue that might be a little bit at this point. And another guy who, of course, comes to mind is Brock Purdy, who I think is very good, and also I think it is elevated by his team. So if he was in a different situation, I think Brock Purdy, again, it's like the Tom Brady thing. And I'm not saying I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady. Okay. But it's the same kind of situation where if he didn't, as this very low pick who by the measurables and everything really was not a top prospect, was not a high prospect. If he didn't go where he went, he might have just been buried on a bench somewhere and buried on a practice squad somewhere. So is Brock Purdy, top 10 QB in this league or right around there? I don't think he is. So I would have to put him on my list.
I think what you're going to see as some of these quarterback discussions start to come out, and overrated to me doesn't necessarily have to mean you think that they're bad, but I think you're going to see some wild stuff about CJ Stroud. I think you're going to see, I'm reading an ESPN.com NFL insider story that came out, I think last week, that was, executives ranking the quarterbacks. So, I mean, look, Mahomes is 1. I don't think anybody would argue that. They've got Burrow at 2, Allen at 3, Lamar at 4. They've got Stroud at 7, and it lists off like where the highest ranking on the list was for him, and it was 2. Somebody had him as the second best quarterback in the league. Looking ahead,
that's a little much.
Yeah,
that's a little bit much.
The lowest ranking had him out of the top 10 somewhere, but like somebody who is an NFL guy had him at number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes on the list. I would assume everybody had Mahomes at 1. That would be my guess.
This is the Texans GM.
I don't know. I don't know. But like it just I like CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud's really good. He had a great year. But like, are we already anointing him a top 5 quarterback in the league at this point?
I certainly wouldn't. Yeah. And I think it's possible that he has a quote unquote sophomore slump, but if he does, that's a big time slump because they have really done a lot around him.
They have.
And
I think he's going to play well this year.
No, I do too. He's good. There's no doubt. He look, when it comes down to it, I think that his biggest strength is the biggest question mark of the quarterback in this town. The biggest thing, and this went back to Ohio State, and this, I was like a lot of people, like, man, got like their 5th receiver is a first-round pick. I mean, they're so much more ridiculously more talented than just about everybody else they play. How do you evaluate a quarterback in that situation? But accuracy, just consistently putting the ball on the mark over and over again. That was there in college. Yes, he would have all day to throw, and yes, the receiver he threw to was 10 yards open, but still, the ball was on the numbers. And that's where that, if you have that, again, it's like Cousins. Because for all that Cousins doesn't have, Cousins has that. That's right at the top. Get the ball out, get it where it's supposed to be. So I just can't imagine him falling off. But 2 in the league, I think you're breaking into, it is Mahomes. And I do think that you could make a lot of different arguments for 2. Some people would put Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Some people would put Burrow. Some people still would put like a Josh Allen in there. I just think it's a little early to put Stroud up there right now.
I think so too. And look, Burrow, it's a big year for him. Like, we all know that when Burrow is healthy, he's a great player. And when you talk about Mahomes, there are 2 guys that have beaten Mahomes in the playoffs. Tom Brady's done it twice. Burrow's done it once. So those are your 2 guys right there. So we all know that Burrow is a great player when he's healthy. But like, this is a pretty important year for him to stay healthy. Like, he's had some injury problems. And it's a big year for him to, like, if you're going to continue to view him as that level of quarterback, like, part of playing quarterback is staying healthy and being available.
No
question.
It's
a big year for him.
Right. Like you mentioned earlier, the QBs who started great. I was trying to think of other examples. But RG3 is the example of, and who knows? I mean, maybe they had some things his rookie year that people weren't ready for, and they caught up. But largely, it was that knee.
Yeah,
and then he just Cousins was there, and Cousins was better. And
I mean, Marcus, his second year, played really good football.
Was very good,
and then he wasn't after that.
Yeah, I don't know like what the ceiling would have been if that never happened. I don't think it's nearly as high as some people would hope it would have been, but yeah, he would probably qualify for that. If Burrow gets hurt again this year, then yeah, you do start to look at his career differently. Like, man, how promising was it? No question about the ability, but once it gets to a certain point and you can't stay healthy, then that's kind of what you are.
Are you good with Jared Goff being in the top 10?
No, he's not a top 10 quarterback.
He's number 9 on this list of the executives.
Look, Goff has done a lot to reclaim his. I mean, when he got just tossed aside by McVay.
Yeah, and
he's done a lot to resuscitate that. He also has fantastic surroundings. He has what some people, I think a lot of people would say, is the number 1 offensive line in the NFL. 2 fantastic backs, the best slot receiver in the NFL for sure, and a top 5-6 receiver overall in St. Brown.
He's pretty good.
And fantastic tight end play. I mean, all of that is to say, though, no, he's good. He's very good. He's top 15 for sure. I think top 10's a little bit weighty for him.
I am looking at this list that ESPN put out there. Mahomes was not unanimous number 1. Somebody had him at 2. I would love to know who that is.
Well, yeah, who was the 1? Who got the 1?
It doesn't list it out that way.
They don't say who the other first.
Let's see.
First,
the highest ranking. Somebody put Josh Allen at 1, so I guess Josh Allen was the other.
And
guy.
he's such an interesting. I would definitely not do that. I like him a lot. Some people are like, well, watch out below without Diggs. We're going to find out, man.
I think Josh Allen is a great player. I'd have a lot of questions about them heading in this year. I do. I would not put him in the – I don't think he's overrated. Like, I think Josh Allen is really good. I mean, we've talked about that game in the divisional round against the Chiefs. And he did everything you could possibly do to win that game.
Absolutely.
He played well last playoff game against the Chiefs. It just sometimes you run into that other guy and it's hard to overcome.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. It's just hard to imagine being an executive in this league and watching everything you've watched and say, yeah, I think Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I don't understand
what?
that. I don't understand that.
But there's dumb executives in the NFL.
There's no doubt. 615-737-1025. Your most overrated quarterbacks get to the most underrated and where Will Levis could fit into this discussion coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock.
Look behind you real fast.
Oh, my gosh.
Dude. That's in Williamston, Michigan, which I have two buddies who live there. I text them, like, which one of you did this, man? Look at that thing.
It's Dan Campbell. I guess that's a cornfield.
It's a cornfield in Williamston, Michigan, and they have the lion mane built around Dan Campbell's face. These people are, I'm so sorry for all you folks. It's going to be such a
gearing up, baby.
fall.
Super Bowl run. You going to be back in? If they make it to the Super Bowl, are you back in?
If the Lions win the Super Bowl.
Not if they win. Not if they win. If they get there, are you back in?
If they win the Super Bowl, I'll become a Lions fan again.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, if they make
Good to know the bar's been set.
If they make the Super Bowl, I'll probably show up. A mighty team that will not yield. Act like an idiot.
He's back, baby.
Yeah. No, they're gonna go like 10-7 this year, which is still good, but they're gonna be a big disappointment.
I look forward to the Packers winning the NFC North.
And that's probably what's going to happen.
Should be good. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to see Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. Be caller 3-615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena coming up this Saturday. Our text line, still for the moment, down. Hit up our YouTube chat. YouTube chat going very strong today. We appreciate it.
The text line, by the way, officially says, quote, some error occurred.
Yeah. Very specific.
Period.
Yes.
Some error
has taken
whatever.
place. We don't know exactly what error it is, but some error has
Rexrode.
taken place.
Something or other.
Thank you.
Thanks. Occurred.
Underrated quarterbacks. We just went through a list of overrated quarterbacks. Who do you think maybe is a little under the radar heading into this year? And does Will Levis appear on this list for you?
Yeah, I would count Will Levis. I hadn't, but yeah, I think Will Levis is absolutely an underrated quarterback because he's rated incredibly low.
Exactly.
I mean, he's rated incredibly low. And I just, again, don't think people understand or care to look into how bad he had it around him on this offense last year and how bad it's been for quarterbacks the last 2 years or much of the last two seasons. So, yeah, I would put him in that category. I'll tell you another guy going into his second year who I would say is underrated because it was a complete bleep show is Bryce Young. Bryce Young, I'm not giving up on him. He's small, and he had his issues. He way outplayed C.J. Stroud and went over C.J. Stroud last year, by the way.
Did.
Think about the Texans season. They freaking lost to the Panthers.
Yeah.
My goodness. And Stroud and Young was the better quarterback that day. Again, that's one game, but I'm just saying I would not dismiss him, and I think it happens so quickly in this league that quarterbacks get dismissed. So those two guys come to mind. But a guy that I absolutely
They got my favorite guy in the league now, by the way, too.
What's that?
You've seen Xavier Legette's press conferences in Carolina? They're unbelievable.
So. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go check them out.
Okay.
Xavier Legette.
Better than Keon Coleman because
Yeah.
Keon Coleman's bringing it.
They're
Okay. Okay. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is definitely like – so Jared Goff, you're – okay, and your list there. You had Jared Goff, what, top 10, 10, 9?
On the ESPN, yeah, he's 9.
And
on
where's
the ESPN
Cousins?
list. Cousins is outside of the top 10. He is honorable mention, whatever that means.
So, okay, so they only do 10.
Yeah, they only do 10.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is as good as Jared Goff, okay, and probably a
I would
little
agree.
better. It's just, I mean, Jared Goff is on a loaded team, and good for him, and he's taking advantage of it. Kirk Cousins is, I think, certainly a top 15 quarterback. I think you can make a case for him to be top, 12 and maybe even, pushing. I mean, if you're going 10, if you're in the range of Hurts, Love, Trevor Lawrence, I think Kirk Cousins is right there with those guys. Very different types of players, everybody I just named, but he's right around a top 10 QB in the league, and I think most people don't have him there. So now, coming off the Achilles at his age, maybe we start to see some regression, but he's been really good. Some of these dumb, again, like, the time of day that you play,
Yeah.
Good God. And, the playoff success. There's been one playoff game that he's lost in which his team was favored.
Yeah.
I'm sorry he couldn't beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers when he had like Will Compton as their starting linebacker with Washington 10 years ago. They were not supposed to win that game, and they got smoked. He goes into New Orleans and leads a game-winning drive and throws a touchdown on the last play to beat Drew Brees in a game they never should have won. We're not supposed to be in, and no one remembers it.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
We know you love you some Kirk.
Yeah,
Cousins.
there's some bias there, but
he's a good player.
He's good.
I'll tell you another one that I think is underrated heading into this year, just based on where he's at on some of these lists that we're talking about. And I understand why, because of his age and because of everything that surrounds him and his Achilles injury and all that. Like Rodgers, the sample size that we have of him playing football, and we'll see what it looks like at age 40 coming off the Achilles. But the latest sample size we have of him playing football is very good. Very, very good. Like top 5 quarterback good. So
he could be on either list.
He could be either way. I mean, if there's no reason for me to believe, based on the way that he throws the football, that if he is healthy, he won't be very, very good. Like I know he's 40, but I mean the guy can sling it. So there's a lot that goes on around Aaron Rodgers. I get it, but I think if he's healthy, then he's going to play well. I think we've seen that enough from him. Like if he's healthy, he is going to play good football. I think we know that. Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah, he's super interesting because to me, people who still think he's that guy, I can't get there. And so then I'm like, it's a little overrated. But some people maybe go a little too far in that thinking and think like he's just diminished and he's just going to be toast. And until we see him not look like
that's the thing,
a really good QB, you kind of have to see it first, right?
That's the thing. Like my guess is, had he stayed healthy last year, he probably would have played pretty darn well. Like, I mean,
yeah.
So until I see him not play well, until I see the age catch up to him, I think I have to include him in this.
Yeah. I mean, Rodgers and Cousins both coming off Achilles tears. That is a serious injury. Now, neither of them are certainly Cousins is not a running, has never been. Rodgers has, I mean, his feet have served him well in his career. So maybe, that changes a little bit. And I mean, that is a big time injury. So you have to, I think that's part of it. I think another thing with Rodgers is just the circus of that place. He's got this thing.
Well, the circus of him and the circus of that place combined. Like it's just
right. Yeah. And then they're smashing circuses and elephants and bearded ladies, trampling each other.
Yes.
I mean, it's something to behold. And I think that's part of it too. It's hard to imagine them not being dysfunctional, but maybe he'll just be so good. Yeah, if they win and he's good, then a lot of that stuff just kind of goes away.
What about Stafford? Stafford's had some problems staying healthy. This ESPN.com executive thing I'm looking at, it's got him at 5. And 5 is talking about top 5 quarterback in the league. Stafford, I think he's 36.
That's overrated.
Yeah, like I think you look at him, if he could stay healthy, can he still be that guy? But I think he's too high on some of these people's list heading into the show.
Top 5. I mean, come on. Let me look at where he is on the PFF, the hallowed PFF list. So they've got him 7, which is so here's what they wrote about Rodgers. His 83.8 passing grade. Again, that's their grade, right? Like they grade on a scale to 100. Ranked 7th in the league. 32 big time throws were 5th most. 2.1% turnover worthy play rate was 2nd behind only Dak Prescott, who was 1st, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Arm talent. It's been elite his whole career. Arm talent, Matthew Stafford, like absurd. I would say Stafford and Rodgers, 2 of the most talented arms ever to play the game, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like make throws that just don't make sense. And he's got the different arm slots and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a little high, right? At this point, so. They're going to be interesting. They were supposed to be crap last year. All of a sudden, it's amazing that they can go out there and just, they get a receiver and a running back nobody wanted, and they're both freaking good.
Unbelievable. Puka Nacua going to catch about 175 passes this year.
Yeah. I mean, if Cooper Kupp actually comes back this year, they're fun.
I think they could be a sleeper team.
Yeah.
I think they could. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. We'll have Corey Curtis from News 2 for his weekly visit at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah, you think about what that team has had to overcome to qualify for the Olympics, the violence, the strife in their country, all the obstacles. It's amazing what Lual and their federation have done to put this team together.
You better not have another biscuit.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. A lot of biscuit talk on this program.
Yeah, I don't remember all this biscuit talk. It's like I've blacked it out somehow. Real quick on the YouTube chat. First of all, Chris asked if Stafford was still at Detroit. Would they have taken the Super Bowl? Yes, Matthew Stafford could take this.
Oh, yeah.
He looks at the lines like, oh, wow, must be nice. And Brent says with the Cousins, you do realize one of the reasons they weren't favored in those games is the QB. Okay. Again, I'm not saying Cousins is an all-time great or anything like that, but I'm just saying the playoff success, he has not had a great team. Now, the Vikings had better teams. They had like one of the league's best teams when they had that ridiculous Hail Mary to beat the Saints like that. That team, those teams defensively were much better than they've gotten in the last few years. Now, he did have Justin Jefferson. But I'm going to transition to Olympic basketball, and Team USA had this they were getting smoked by South Sudan, which, by the way, I'll raise my hand and admit I did not know South Sudan existed. That's apparently been 12, 13 years, so I need to brush up on my geography and history. But South Sudan gave it a great run the other day. There's a primer. It's, obviously the Olympics haven't started yet. U.S. LeBron comes through, wins it. And then at the end, that was, you might be able to call a foul inside on the U.S. Didn't call it. I don't know. It was close. And so they survived. So everybody freaked out. So this is what I saw all over the place. People, everything has to come back to the dream team in 1992, right? So all over the place I saw this. No, this is not the dream team. No, this is not as good as the dream team. There will never be another dream team, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, you're right. Absolutely, I agree. There will never be another dream team. Also, the story here, folks, is that there's actually good basketball internationally, and that the dream team, while great and an incredible collection of players, had no competition. That's what's changed. There was no competition in 1992. Charles Barkley could go out in Barcelona and order dinner at 6 a.m. after being at the club all night and then show up the next day and go for 20 and 10. It was not a problem. There was no competition. Let's go back to 1992. The silver medalist that year was Croatia. They did have two NBA players. They had Toni Kukoc and Drazen Petrovic. That was the one team that, and I mean, what was the final score? I mean, the U.S. could name its score, right? Let's see. What was the final score? Yeah, they beat them 117-85. Okay. So, but they had a couple NBA players. The bronze, Lithuania had, they had an old Arvydas Sabonis. Okay. Let's go to this year. Let's look at the rosters this year. So basically, there were no NBA players on other than on Team USA. This year, Canada, RJ Barrett, Dort, Dylan Brooks, SGA, Trey Lyles, Jamal Murray, Andrew Nembhard, Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell. France, Nicholas Batum, Evan Fournier, Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama's up here throwing lobs at Gobert. Okay. Australia, Josh Giddey, Josh Green, Joe Ingles, Duop Rith, Dante Exum, Dyson Daniels. Also, you have two former guys, Matthew Dellavedova, Patty Mills. That's not bad. That's pretty good. Serbia. How about Jokic on Serbia? Yeah, that seems like a pretty good guy. Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Hawks. Okay, not bad. How about Germany? Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, Daniel Theis, Dennis Schroeder, Isaac Bunk. I mean, that's not bad. South Sudan has Bol, has Wenyan Gabriel, has Don Maker. Right. Dang Adele. Spain has Rudy Fernandez. They got some former guys. They got Santi Aldama, who's with the Grizzlies. Greece, I don't know. Giannis, he's okay. That's not bad, right? I just keep going. I can keep going. Japan has Rui Hachimura. Brazil has Santos from the Warriors and a bunch of there's a bunch of former NBA players too. on a lot of these teams, like Nick Kalathis on Greece, for example. It's completely – that's what's changed, okay? The Dream Team was incredible, and it was so much fun. It was the first year of the NBA. The Dream Team had Magic Johnson. He had found out months earlier that he was HIV positive. He did not play that year in the NBA. He came back for the All-Star game. He eventually came back. He was way past, he was past his prime. He was not in the best shape. He was past his prime. He was still Magic and still an incredible passer, all that stuff, but he was not peak Magic. Larry Bird's back at that point was completely shot. He was a shell of himself. His career, really, he was great for about 7-8 years in the NBA. He was not peak Larry Bird. Jordan was peak. Barkley was peak. Ewing was still very good. Like, they were loaded, but we act like this was like this insane, like unbeatable basketball team. Take that team, and this is also what I always argue with the NBA, but take that team, put them in this tournament. That team as it existed, put them in this tournament. I promise you they are in basketball games, folks. They are in competitive basketball games. Put them against this Team USA. I'd like to watch it. Yeah. I'll watch it. I think this team might have something for them.
Yeah.
So that the story is what has happened worldwide with basketball, which is an amazing story, and it's awesome, and it's why going through these teams, I can't wait for this tournament. I'm actually going to be excited to watch these games. U.S. Canada, U.S. France, U.S. Australia, those are games. This is good. And it's not, the story is not, these guys can't hold a candle 92. 92 had nothing to do but go out and hang out in Barcelona and then mess around a little bit and beat anybody by 30.
This conversation is going to come back to from some people of just how much you hate Michael Jordan. That's what it's going to come back
said
to.
He was peak Jordan. I said he's peak Jordan, man. I mean, that team was dumb because they didn't have Isaiah, which is a complete crock and a travesty and ridiculous. But I didn't even get into that until I'm just saying, brought me there. I'm not ripping Jordan. I mean, Jordan was great at that time. Jordan was peak Jordan. He was winning titles. He was, what was he, 8-9 years in the league? Yeah. He was great. Barkley was great. Barkley, I think, was MVP, I think, the next year.
Yes.
And should have beat Jordan in the finals, but they blew it. So, but again, like two of the biggest 4 stars on that team were way past their best.
Oh yeah, for sure. And look, we had this conversation too about, the argument always comes up. Would you take the Dream Team or the Redeem Team? You talk about a game I'd love to watch. That would be near the top of the list. Dream Team, Redeem Team. It would be awesome.
It'd be good.
It'd be really
LeBron.
good.
LeBron in his prime. Kobe.
I think if you dismiss out of hand that, like, if you just think that nobody can ever hold a candle to the Dream Team again and that they would just beat every U.S. team by like 20 points, I think you're crazy. No, they may be the best one ever.
Yeah, they blew out their crappy teams they played.
Like they might still, like, if you lined them up player for player, they might still be the best team ever. But I think it's closer than a lot of people would want to admit.
Like I said, those two guys, they had a lot of great players. Clyde Drexler was great at that point. Stockton, Malone were great at that point. Pippen is, to me, an underrated player in NBA history. It's a loaded team. You didn't have to have Chris Mullin. That should have been Isaiah. But whatever, that's fine.
Leitner.
Yeah, whatever. God. You have to just make sure that the team's somewhat hateable and put Christian Leitner on it. Like, everyone, Leitner. Oh. No, it's and by the way, I may as well throw another hoops take on this. I'm watching LeBron the other day. He's going to carry the flag for the U.S. for the men's team. LeBron is the best basketball player of all time. There is no question. LeBron is the best basketball player. What he's doing at this age is truly incredible.
Pretty ridiculous. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. My favorite argument that I hear from him sometimes. And look, if you think he's the best, that's fine. If you think Jordan's the best, that's fine.
No, it's not.
But the argument of, well, LeBron couldn't have played in the 90s. It's too physical.
Good God.
It's like, yeah, I'm sure it's too physical for the 6'8",
270-pound guy coming downhill. No, he couldn't have dealt with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that argument. It's too physical. It's like, okay. You see this guy?
It's just like, incredible. How could anyone ever think that? David James is nodding in approval. He agrees. He's a hoops guy.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans as they are set to open up training camp this week. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, good morning. How are you?
I am better than Joe, but better than most, but I'm okay.
That's good. I'm glad you're better than Joe.
Yeah, I mean, better than me. It's not saying a ton. Are you better than Arden Key, who apparently is like furious at PK?
That's Arden Key, man. Come on. That just goes with the territory.
Taking Instagram shots at Kuharski, saying nobody likes it.
I've never been around him when he wasn't like the cheeriest guy in the room, Arden Key.
Yeah, but he was probably smiling when he tweeted that.
He probably was.
That's probably true.
He probably was.
He and Kuharski.
Well, he's about to be really busy.
I
mean, as we know, Arden Key let us in on the secret that now the coaching staff corrects things when they go wrong on the field.
That's
so
right.
He's about to be real busy this week.
Yeah, very different kind
of
training
camp. We know they didn't correct injury problems for 3 years.
They did not.
Maybe there's some truth to that.
They did not. It is true. Corey, we were having this discussion about Will Levis earlier. Let's say the hypothetical, and we love this time of year when everybody starts coming out with a quarterback list. But if Will Levis gets into top 15 quarterback area this year in terms of his ranking, number one, would you take that if you're a Titans fan? And number two, is that an attainable path for Will Levis in year two?
I'd have to have the whole list in front of me.
There's a lot of good ones before you get down to the 20s.
Yeah. No, there are. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, with this offense where he's actually going to throw the ball, and with actual weapons around him, with Ridley and Hopkins and Boyd and Pollard and Spears, I certainly think it's possible. And with the coaching that he's going to get, I certainly think it's possible. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think that's lofty though. I mean, you go through the names. I'm not saying it's impossible either, but you go through the names. I mean, you're in very good territory still, well into the teens. If he were to do that, to me, Corey, I think it wouldn't maybe be over or a slam dunk, but it'd be pretty clear that he'd be on his way to being the Titans guy, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, my expectations are high. I mean, I expect him to throw for 4,000 yards this year if he stays healthy. Because he averaged like 220 something a game last year with that offensive line, with those weapons, in a run heavy Derrick Henry offense. So with this offense, I would think he could average well over that. And so, I do have lofty, expectations, and I do think he's made of the right stuff. He still has a ton to prove. I'm not sitting here writing checks saying, Will Levis is the next great thing. I think he's got it in him, and I think they've got the plan to make it work. But they've all got to prove it. I mean, shoot, Brian Callahan's got to prove it at this point. And just because a quarterback throws for a lot of yards doesn't always make him a great quarterback. You've got to be able to do it in the clutch, and you've got to not turn the football over. Jameis Winston's thrown for a lot of yards.
Yeah.
He's thrown for a lot of yards for both teams. That's the problem. And so, there'll be more to it than throwing for 3,500 or 4,000 yards or whatever there is to it. I expect if he stays healthy, though, for the stats to look pretty good. Now, we know me. I'm not the biggest Trevor Lawrence guy out there. Do I think he could be better than Trevor Lawrence at the end of the year? Maybe. But I don't think Trevor Lawrence has shown me that much after 3 years where I'm like, wow, he's a top 15 quarterback. I know some of the heads last year going in wanted to make him top 5. He certainly proved he was not. Okay. So, there's one where you went in thinking, well, he's got Peterson and he's got weapons, right? And he was the first overall pick, and he had a very year last year. So, I mean, that's a cautionary tale. And I'm interested to see how those two guys – I'm more interested to see how those two guys stack up than how he stacks up with Richardson in Indianapolis, because we'll only have like a 3-game sample for Richardson when the season's over.
Yeah, on the training camp front, Levis part of this aside, because we're about to get into the time of year, Corey, where everything he does, everything he says, every throw he makes is going to be scrutinized and overanalyzed and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
as we head into training camp, what are some things about this team that you're most curious to learn as Brian Callahan embarks on year one?
Well, I mean, the offensive line is number one. The games are won inside out, regardless of who you got on the outside. If you can't protect the quarterback at all, you're generally not going to be in business. And so, can Skoronski take it to another level? How good is Latham? And are those guys on the right side going to be good enough? I mean, it's really curious, for me to see. So, I mean, to me, I'm pretty confident the guys they've got to get the football to can play. They've got to have the guys who allow them to get the football. And so, I think we said last night on Sports Extra, we talked about things that we knew about this team. Well, one of them was we knew the offensive line would be better coached. And so we felt like whatever the offensive line gave them was the best that group has. And so, we'll learn if they need new players or something else, because we feel like Callahan will put those players in the best position to be successful. So that remains number one. They've corrected some shortcomings with talent. The corner situation is corrected with talent. The wide receiver situation is corrected with talent. You've got a proven guy at center and a first-round pick at left tackle, but that group still has to prove it in a big way. So that remains it. And then can any of these guys on the edge step up? Because they have not invested there this offseason. You can't correct every problem in one offseason. I truly recognize that. We'll see what Rashad Weaver brings this year. But I'm watching Caleb Murphy and I'm watching Thomas Rush because I want to see if one of those guys can elevate and help this team. I'm not saying can one of those guys be a starter for this team. I'm saying can one of those guys be a consistent contributor for this team? I mean, Murphy's a kid who had 22 sacks. I know it's Division II, but give me a list of 5 guys who've ever had 22 sacks in Division II. All right. It doesn't happen. So he's got a knack for hitting the quarterback. We saw it in the preseason. I think he led the team in sacks in the preseason. There's more to it than that, but can he elevate his game to this level? Because the great ones generally can. And so we'll see if he can do that. And Rush was a guy who was a priority UDFA for them last year. And you watch him in practice and, you see he's a bigger, thicker guy who's got some power to him. And I'm looking forward to seeing him on the field. I'm not making any promises for him. I'm not trying to blow him up. I'm not Mason Kinseying him. I'm just saying I want to see what he can do. I want to see if he can give this team something. If he can't, he can't. But he's one I'm interested to watch.
Speaking of things Corey, what would you say about this defense? Because I could even make the case that I got a range of possibilities for 98 this year. What do you know about this defense?
Well, I know they're going to take chances. Okay. I know they're gonna go after people. They're gonna give up big plays and they're gonna make big plays because that's what they're gonna be after. And I think they've written that check at cornerback to take those chances. And so I think that's what I know about this defense.
Yeah, I mean the Simmons part of this is also really interesting, just in terms of everybody knows Jeffrey Simmons is a really, really good player. There have been some injury concerns the last couple of years. He's getting paid a lot of money to be an elite player. And I do think, Corey, there's another level that he needs to take his game to this year.
Well,
do you agree with that?
Well, you know what? Yeah, I think we have seen his game at a really high level. I mean, it was a couple of years ago where after the first 5-6 weeks, and maybe 8, he was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, his numbers were there right at a sack a game. And then he got hurt. And so, the staying healthy part is the big part for him. Because even though, the games played may be higher, we saw him play through an ankle that he was trying to get his team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's why he kept going out. He was a shell of himself. We also know that no player's been double teamed more, right? In the last 3 years than him. So, that's part of doing your job. Other guys have got to make plays in that situation, and he wins some of those battles. Maybe he can take it to another level. When he's healthy, he's really good. And I'm just fine with the level he's at. What I need to see is him stay healthy. Now, the good news from that front is he has not had the catastrophic injury. He has not had, the knee or the hip or anything like that. It's been ankles most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, he's got to find a way to keep from getting rolled up on, down there, maybe a few less snaps. I don't know, but they didn't invest on that position either.
If you had to make a choice here between one of these guys ready to go full speed from day one, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Tavondre Sweat, which one would you choose?
Tavondre Sweat.
That was quick.
That was quick.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because what do I think the player can be? All right. I think the ceiling is higher for Tavondre Sweat. All right. I think, he can be a wrecking ball in the middle for this team, and he needs to be healthy and he needs to be in shape, because if he shows up not healthy and not in shape, then number one, he's probably going to get hurt. Okay. Because if he comes in out of shape, he's probably going to get hurt. And then he's going to be battling all season. He's going to be battling all season to get there. And, like I said, they didn't invest heavily. They brought in Sebastian Joseph Key. He's a good player. But, if Sweat can't be there, then they're thin. They're thin at that spot. And you've seen their excitement for him. Okay. They think he can be an important piece. So that tells me that piece needs to be out there. We've seen Nicholas Petit-Frere. Now, we haven't seen him with Bill Callahan, so I'd like to see what Bill Callahan can do with him. But I don't think anybody would look at Nicholas Petit-Frere as irreplaceable at this point. Maybe he develops into that player. I hope so. He's a nice kid. He's a super smart kid. He's, really big. And I think he's got some athleticism to him. But again, he's one where you said, does he need to take his game to another level? Absolutely.
Well, Corey, we've almost made it. Training camp is this week. We'll have some preseason football right around the corner. Thanks for taking time to be with us this morning.
You know what? I managed to carve out a few minutes of my day.
You did.
And I almost hung up after listening to the Rex rant, but I hung around.
Hey, well, go ahead.
No, let me ask you this. Okay. I know you hate Jordan, and that's fine.
I don't hate Jordan.
He does.
Okay. And look, I am down with, you can make the arguments that LeBron's the best ever. I'm not going to fight you that you can totally make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with what you have to say about international competition. It is such a different story today than it was then. So I don't have a problem with that. LeBron could play at any era. No, I'm saying LeBron could play at any era. The great ones could play at any era. LeBron could certainly play in that era.
Right.
But you can't tell me that if Jordan played today, he wouldn't average 35 a game.
Oh, Jordan! I wouldn't say
they play defense now.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't argue otherwise. Yeah, Jordan in his prime would be a great player in the NBA today. Absolutely. A lot of the guys in the league back
35
then
to 40 a game.
So you think
they don't play defense? He played in a league where you were allowed to body slam him in the lane.
Yeah, we could go on and on around this. I'll say this though, this game has now embraced spacing and the 3-point shot, which he did later in his career. His game. He
could develop whatever part of his game he wanted to develop.
I don't know that he's scoring. I don't know that he's scoring a ton more per game now than he did then. Yes, he got body slammed sometimes. You watch those games. We act like he got body slammed constantly. Lambeer would clothesline him, right? I get that.
It was a different league then. You could check people at the 3-point line.
There were also dudes who would be laughed at if they tried to play in the NBA today, all over the league.
You're right. The league is better now. There are way more better players. There's without question. But one of the reasons that there's more better players is you're allowed to shoot the basketball. All right. Now, believe me, I am all for letting players' true athletic ability shine. It was because we could have a similar conversation about the NHL. There were guys who couldn't really skate, but they could beat the crap out of people, so they were allowed to stay in the league, and they jumbled up the game. And then they finally said, we need to allow people to skate and create scoring and create offense. And they changed the rules in the NHL as well for the better. And now those guys aren't in the league anymore either. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we could go down the Bulls, and we can laugh at some of the players Jordan played with. I mean, do you think Bill Cartwright could have played today?
No.
Bill Cartwright
Dave
catching
Corzine.
strays.
I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Bill Wennington.
Good God, no.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is
All
what
right,
I'm
we
talking
all
about.
agree then.
Yeah. I mean, and Jordan scored 30 a game with those clowns on his team. Come on.
There we go.
I mean, someone had to score.
Thank you, Corey. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, Corey.
Later. Bye.
Corey Curtis from News 2, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your thoughts on that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines. Text line's operational, baby. Back in there. 615-737-1025, our phone number.
Some error is no longer occurring.
Yeah, some error was fixed.
I texted PK, by the way, because Arden Key has attacked Paul Kuharsky on the internet.
This.
Has
Yes.
attacked him.
Yes.
This is shocking to me. You want to read Arden Key's? You
I'll
want
read
to sanitize and read his message he
This
wrote
is
about
from
PK?
Arden Key's Instagram 11 hours ago. His story.
Sunday night, just had to post something.
Quote, I'm going to say it probably the first time in Titan history. Paul Kuharsky, don't nobody bleep with you or respect you, buddy. Next question. This is what Arden Key had to say.
What the heck?
That seems very random.
Is
I
that
need to go back and, did Kuharsky come out with something last night that would have upset Arden Key?
I mean, no, I don't know. Kuharsky says it makes no sense. He said, I bet he doesn't even know what I said. Well, that's the thing. What? So this has to be up with the Derrick Henry thing, right? I mean, if Derrick Henry dunks on Kuharsky, then probably a lot of Titans players probably see like that more likely than just your random Kuharsky tweet or whatever. First of all, I'm going to say it probably the first time in Titan history. No, dude.
No, man. There's a long list.
You are not a trailblazer, Arden. I hate to break this to you. You are not breaking new ground here, okay? You are not.
Guys, I got a real controversial take.
You are not Magellan on this one, okay? There are. But
Kuharsky, I got a problem with you. I don't care who knows it.
Yeah. I know everyone else has always loved you forever, but I got something different for the people. But yeah, Arden Key is like the happiest, nicest dude ever all the time. He loves talking. He likes answering questions.
My favorite part of this is it was Sunday night at 9 o'clock when this happened. Like, what could possibly be going on? Where he's like, by the way, Paul Kuharsky, nobody likes you or respects you. Get out of here.
Hopefully it means that Arden Key takes breaks from social media, which everybody should.
Yeah.
I try to. I try to do a weekend and just stay off it.
I did this last week. It was nice.
Yeah. And then he caught up and he saw Derrick Henry dunking on him. Was like, oh, baby.
Maybe so.
Now I'll be the second person who's been mad at Paul Kuharsky. I mean, Derrick was just having fun with him anyway. I mean, Derrick Henry had a good relationship with Kuharsky. That's wild. Now, there is the thing that happened with Kuharsky's phone and Arden Key, so maybe that's part of it too.
There is that.
If you know, you know. Measuring cheek size. What? Good job, Nick. Nick was ready. He was ready on the draw on that one.
That was good.
Yeah, so maybe that has something to do with it, right?
So.
I don't know. My goodness. I can't wait to get to camp and ask him why he hates Paul Kuharsky.
Yeah.
And I promised Kuharsky that I'm going to ask Jeff Simmons because, Kuharsky, like someone else we know, funny how they have some commonalities, Kuharsky and Stilly, is Mr. No one asks a tough question, that garbage. So I was like, fine, I'll ask Simmons, who he's mad at. Okay. I'll fall on the sword and ask Jeff who he's mad at in the media. You can just sit there quietly and then he'll look at you and yell at you.
There you go.
Interesting. What is up, Paul? I actually love how he called him Paul Kuharsk, too.
Yeah, there's not even the Y at the end of it. Just Paul Kuharsk.
Takes the Y off his name. You don't even get the Y. I'm going to take the Y off your name.
Another training camp story to monitor. Kuharsky and Arden Key heading into it. Should be fun.
Josh from White House says, Key for president. Give Kuharsky a break, folks.
Yeah. I mean, in this situation, I can't even see what he's done.
I mean,
I don't know what he's done to offend.
He went overboard on his little take on Derrick Henry, as he tends to do at times. And then Derrick Henry dunked on him. We all laughed about it. Let's all have fun and have some training camp. But man,
jeez,
starting out hot.
Spicy. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We will get back into the Will Levis discussion coming up next. Is there have you found something?
Just look at the last text in the text, and I'm not reading it.
I got you. I see it now. Very good stuff. Well, coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Arden Key catching some strays on the text line. Jimmy on the text line says, didn't know Key was still on the team with his lack of production. If he was half as good of his job as PK is, he'd be great. It's from Jimmy on the text line.
From Hville.
Yeah.
Wow. There is also a texter who says Arden has found the ... key to my heart, hating Paul.
Oh, boy.
Paul is very
Polarizing.
He is polarizing, but I'm with all of you who think he's good at his job. And also, man, Arden Key. I can't wait. I'm just going to ask him, what did Kaharski do to you? I hope Kaharski's there. But then again, that's actually an interesting the first time I've thought of this. And it's a big deal. I mean, at least it is to us. Maybe it's not to listeners and fans as much, but the access level is going to be really interesting here in camp. I really hope Brian Callahan lets the professional athletes be professional athletes and speak and be available.
Better put Arden Key out there. We got a lot to talk about with Arden Key right now.
Yeah, and
how much correcting is going on?
If it's picking, whatever, a handful of guys after every practice, yeah, I bet you Arden will be a while.
It'll be 2 weeks before we see Arden Key.
I'd say come right out and let's get this story while it's hot.
615-737-1025
cheek leak
is our phone number, which may have been the greatest hashtag ever developed on this show. Good stuff. The Will Levis discussion. Is there a path to him being a top 15 quarterback this year? This conversation started with you and PK last week about, if you're a Titans fan, I think you'd be crazy not to sign up for that. If he was in the top 15 at the end of the year, I think that's a great development for him.
Huge development.
And for the Tennessee Titans.
Huge,
even huge. Is it attainable? I mean, you start listing off the quarterbacks. There's some pretty darn good quarterbacks, even down to 15, 16, 17. So is there an attainable path for Will Levis to get there? How do you view that discussion? And is a top 15 type of season, in your opinion, for him necessary if the Titans are going to find their way into the playoffs?
Second thing, no. I think they could make the playoffs. If he could be, probably top 25, 20, low 20s, something like that. I mean, this defense, as we've talked about, is so all over the map in the possibilities that there is a scenario where it's really good and it all comes together, and Levis isn't great and they, win 9 games and sneak in as a 7th seed. There's a way without Levis being great. If he is, though, that's not great. Top 15 isn't great. Top 15 is really good in the NFL right now.
Yes.
Really good. So if he is that, I have a hard time seeing them not be right there. I would have to think they'd be right there for it. Now maybe that's an error. Then the defense is 2020 Titans defense. And, Sweat can't get on the field, and Sneed's all of a sudden is hurt now, and he's missing some games, and they're terrible at middle linebacker, and
they
they're
can't rush passer,
bad at safety.
Yeah.
They don't have enough edge rushing, and so Levis's great season is all for naught. But the bottom line is, regardless of the team results, you want the top 15. Whatever else happens, if you get that, the future is looking brighter.
That's what this season is about to me. It is about him. And how good can he be? At the end of it, do you feel pretty good about the direction you're heading with him as the leader of your franchise? Like that's what this year is about. I mean, we went through the names earlier. I mean, there's Mahomes and Burrow and Jackson. I mean, there's a lot of really good quarterbacks down to Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love and Jared Goff. Like it's pretty deep in terms of the quarterback pool, the starters, of how far you got to get down there before start running into some questionable quarterbacks. So is it attainable for him to be in the top 15? It's attainable. I think it's going to be really hard. Like I think it's a really, really high bar for him to get to in his second year. Now, I'm with you. I don't think he necessarily has to do that for them to be in the playoff push. But like, just put yourself in that conversation. Like, even if you're not top 15, put yourself in the conversation with the Kirk Cousinses and with, Trevor Lawrence,
Jordan
and
Love.
with Jordan Love. Like, if you can do
Brock
that,
Purdy.
then you're going to be in a pretty good spot, right? I mean, right now, from a national perspective, he's not close to those conversations. I mean, not close. And I'm not saying he should be based on a 9-game sample size, but you're hoping that with some of the foundational pieces they've laid down around him this year, and with a new system coming in under Brian Callahan, that elevates his game and that highlights what he's good at. And at the end of the year, you got a pretty good, I mean, it's an important year for him. Like, let's say the opposite happens and he's bad and you get to the end of the year and you don't feel really good at all about his season and the year that he's had. I mean, the Titans could conceivably move on from him after this year. I'm not saying that they will, but like, that's on the tape.
It happens.
It's a big, I mean, we know this. It's a big year for him, and it could go either way in terms of how you view him at the end of the year. So if you're viewing him closer to a top 15 quarterback in the league after year 2, then I'm not saying that you've totally figured it out then, but you're feeling pretty good about his direction at the end of the year.
No doubt. I mean, you get into the low 20s and you're in, it's Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr. I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
What's he going to be this year? I don't know. But even like a Deshaun Watson, as problematic as that has been, that's still someone who has played at a high level in this league. I mean, you're in Kyler Murray territory, Geno Smith. I mean, these are at least solid, maybe not consistent. Everything's not great, but pretty good quarterbacks. So top 15 would be a huge deal. And yeah, look, I'm sticking with my prediction that he's going to make progress and that he's going to be pretty good this year and that he's going to be the quarterback next year, but that it's not going to necessarily be that big deal must be his.
Yeah.
But there's the scenario of oh my gosh, of course he's a guy, and there's the scenario of he's definitely not the guy.
Yeah.
That's why, but one of many things that makes this team so interesting.
Chase from Bellevue says, don't think he takes that huge of a jump this year, but it's for sure possible with the receiving core and the weapons in the backfield. Dylan on the text line says, would a Brett Favre comparison be good for Levis? I think he had a strong arm like Favre. Both take chances with the deep ball. Both needed to work with touch passes, being soft with it, having checkdowns. Only downside to Favre was the interceptions, but Favre would have 2 interceptions in a game, but 4 touchdowns that same game. What do you think of the Brett Favre?
I don't hate the comparison. Now you're talking about an athlete I hated. Boy, has he carried that through to his post-football career. But I don't hate it. The Brett Favre.
You may know where a good volleyball game could be around here.
Oh man, what a guy! He
make any money for build a facility.
Yeah, Brett Favre. Anybody for his text recently? He sent some interesting texts in his life. A variety of. What a guy. But he had such a big arm, and that was part of I feel like Favre just could throw it through the wall kind of guy. Huge arm. Yes, he would definitely gamble, make mistakes, but I mean, he was great. If Levis could be that guy and make those mistakes but produce like that, yeah, of course you'll take that. It's Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right. But
that's asking a lot.
Even not to that extreme, though. Like the
comparison. Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
I think there's a little bit of it. Like Will Levis has the physical tools to be a good quarterback. We saw him make some throws last year that, are elite level throws. Now, there are plenty of guys like, Jamarcus Russell could make some elite level throws too, but can you do it on a consistent basis? Timing it right, everything that goes into it from the mental standpoint at the quarterback position. That's why it's one of the hardest jobs in sports, maybe the hardest job in sports, is to play quarterback at a high level at the NFL. So there's no doubt that he's got physical tools that you love. Plenty of guys have had that. And
absolutely.
And there are plenty of guys, to your point, that really don't have that. Like Brock Purdy doesn't have great physical tools.
Nor does Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins doesn't have great physical tools. But there are plenty of guys that don't have great physical tools that have also played really good quarterback at the NFL level. It's wild to kind of think about how the different ways that you could go about playing this position. And then every now and then you run across guys like Mahomes that have all of it.
Yeah, look, I mean, even like someone like Justin Herbert is absurdly talented, right? Like he has everything. Josh Allen, and that's the thing. I just still think the Josh Allen comparison in some ways, I like that comparison better than like a Favre, for example. Now I don't think Levis will ever be that kind of runner, but he is that kind of athlete, and he's a huge arm. And when Josh Allen came in the league, I never thought he'd be a good quarterback because he just wasn't accurate enough. He wasn't consistent enough, and he figured it out. And that's like a guy like Dak Prescott. There's a reason he went in the 4th round. He doesn't have, like, he's not this supremely talented guy, right?
Yeah.
But he has figured out. Whereas like a Matthew Stafford has one of the greatest arms that's ever played the NFL, but no one would ever think of him as one of the all-time great quarterbacks, right?
Well, and somebody, I mean, we brought up Jameis earlier, right? Like Jameis has plenty of talent.
Yeah.
Right? He's got an unbelievable amount of talent.
No doubt.
But it just never really came together at the NFL level.
Exactly. You can't make that many mistakes. So I don't know. It's I think, I think Levis, if he's anywhere in this discussion of that mid-range, I mean, Tua's another guy in there.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, a really interesting situation with him in the contract as camp starts here.
Yeah.
If he's anywhere in that discussion and he's ahead of some of these guys like Baker, Geno, some of these guys in that range, Kyle, that means you probably have found your guy. And we haven't even talked about Richardson. And I do think that Richardson and Levis this year is going to be certainly in this division, but I think it's a kind of a parallel storyline with those two and how they both develop.
Yep. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. More of your thoughts on Will Levis coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Titans training camp beginning this week. We'll have you covered all week long here on the program. I got one texter, Joe, that says, Will Levis is Jay Cutler. Same dude. What do you make of that comparison?
Yeah. I think there's some stylistic comparisons there for sure. Jay Cutler, tremendous arm talent, big, pretty athletic guy, would throw the death pick sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Still, hey, in Chicago Bears lore, an all-time great.
He should have his jersey retired.
Yeah, just about. But yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Someone here says if we go by what Levis thinks of himself, he'll be a top 3 quarterback. Wow, that's a little rough there. I don't think that Levis. I don't know, man. Some people just don't like the kid, and that's their right. But I don't think Levis comes off arrogant.
I would love to know, like,
cocky,
what
or
has he
anything
done
like that.
since he's been in the NFL? What has he done that makes you not like him? Like, I don't really understand. Like, what's he done?
And you're a Vols fan.
Yeah. I mean, I understand
You
the Tennessee,
should be
Kentucky
offended
stuff.
by every word he says.
Yeah, like I understand the Tennessee, Kentucky stuff, but like at some point you get over that, don't you? And
yeah, it's I don't get it. I really don't get it. Based on, like you said, okay. I mean, if it bothers you to see him put the mayo in the coffee or something, okay, well, that's fine. The banana was pretty gross. Actually, they're both kind of gross. But that doesn't mean he's cocky, right? Just means he makes some interesting culinary choices.
Yeah. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's up, bud? Hey, I'm so happy football's here. Yeah, so I don't think Levis is Cutler, because Cutler was unlikable. Like he was to the point where it was like he's so good, so you have to tolerate him. But he was incredibly unlikable. I don't think his family liked him, but Levis is different. Levis is just quirky, man. Like he's weird, but weird is good. I've never seen weird as a bad thing. Unlikable, that's Cutler, dude. Like he was like unapologetically unlikable. So no, I don't put those two on the same level at all, dude.
Thanks for calling, Adam. I mean,
we weren't even talking about that.
Yeah, it's just the physical part of it.
But there is some. Cutler was unlikable.
There's no doubt,
even by Bears fans. He was, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, yelling at teammates as a quarterback can be a good thing. I mean, when Brady does it, oh, look at the leadership! Just a genius the way he yells at people.
Here we go.
Peyton Manning did the same thing. Peyton Manning would get after people sometimes. It'd be like
the mic'd up clip of Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday getting into it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Very good. So there was Cutler at times. He definitely had some sideline stuff and all that. Levis will have those. Levis yelled at DeAndre Hopkins as a rookie,
which floored me when it happened.
Yeah.
And then I kind of loved it.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, Hopkins didn't seem to be upset by it.
No, Hopkins, I believed him after the game. He was like, he was kind of like impressed too. Like, okay, let's go. So, but that's the thing, that if your performance has to validate that. Your performance has to make you, like, give you the pass to do that,
like,
right?
You can't be Charlie Whitehurst out there just yelling at everybody.
Right. So if he's good, then I think that'll definitely continue. I think either way, I think he's intense in games. And so you'll see that intensity on the sidelines. But yeah, when it comes to getting after people, you got to play well too. But yeah, we were just talking about stylistically with Cutler. I think that's pretty good. And honestly, if you're a Titans fan right now, I mean, Cutler, his career wasn't great.
Yeah.
But he did have some very good years in the NFL, some very productive years.
I mean, of that draft class, he's pretty good. I mean, better than Leinart, better than Vince.
Yeah, that's right.
Turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah. So that could be a parallel too.
Yeah, like the personality stuff, I'm not worried about that about Levis anymore. Matter of fact, based on what I've seen, I kind of like the personality. I like the approach. I think he's going to do everything he can possibly do to maximize what he is from an approach standpoint, from a preparedness standpoint. I think he's going to do everything he can possibly do to maximize what he is. And look, maybe Joe, at the end of the day, he's not good enough. I don't know. Like that I'm not closing. That could be a possibility that we get through 3 quarters of this season and one conversation we're having on the show is, yeah, guys, I don't think Will Levis is very good. Like that could happen this year, but I don't think it's going to be from a lack of work that gets put in and a preparedness and all that stuff.
No way. That will not be the reason. God, I'm looking at Cutler. First year in Chicago, he throws for 3,700, 27 TDs, 61%, 27 TDs, and 26 interceptions. My goodness, did he throw some picks?
A lot of turnovers.
Oh,
it's
man,
not Jameis, but it's pretty close.
He ended his career with 227 TDs and 160 picks. That is ample. That's
a great ratio.
Someone is going to catch the freaking ball when he puts it in the air.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't want that. You don't want that aspect if you're a Levis fan. What's that?
Jameis that 1 year had 30 picks, 33 touchdowns, 30 picks. That's a heck of a year.
So positive ratio. Just saying.
It is. He has 141 career touchdown passes, 99 picks.
Okay. That's a similar ratio to Cutler.
Hey, it's fun. That's fun though. Anytime you drop back, you never know what's going to happen with those guys.
Oh yeah. And that's what you don't want people to be saying if you're a Titans fan about Will Levis after this year. Right?
Like, wow, we know somebody's catching the ball when he drops
something.
Back. We don't know who it's going to be.
Something exciting is going to happen. I could get into this more. I want to real quick with Corey Curtis. I'll probably argue with him again. Michael Jordan carved up a lot of people, and he's great. But there's a lot of people who could guard him in today's NBA as compared to the former NBA. I'm just saying.
Just get your last Jordan shot in.
I'm not taking a shot at Jordan, but Corey's saying he'd come in and just score 40 a game. I mean, let's take it.
Took a shot at Brady this segment, his leadership style. Now get one in on Jordan.
Brady was a great leader. I'm just saying he does things and then other people do it and it's bad. But when he does it, it's good.
Hey, we're that much closer to seeing him call a football game too. That'll be fun.
I am looking forward to it too. He's got a high bar, honestly, with Greg. He does.
The ceiling is the roof.
That does it for us today. Jason Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.